and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Looking forward to another podcast recording. What are we talking about today, Helen?
I thought we could have a chat about executive coaching. And I thought this for a number of reasons. I think it would help to explain what's meant by the term. Secondly, I thought we could help any coaches who are out there who are wondering whether they are an executive coach or they might want to class themselves as such. And finally, because when some coaches are considering applying to the Association for Coaching for personal coach accreditation, there is the option of two pathways, coach and executive coach. So I thought we could help clarify what executive coach is.
Do you think those people that are an executive coach would know that you're an executive coach?
Yes, if they've done the type of training that labels them as such.
Okay. But
there are some of our doctors who work in organisational settings and who've done our course, and they might think, well, you know, what about me? Because our course isn't labelled as an executive coaching course.
Yeah. Fair point.
Thank
well
you.
Made. And actually, I guess if you were a manager in the NHS, in let's say in a hospital setting, and you were coaching people, you would probably see yourself as an executive coach.
Yeah.
If you're a doctor coaching in that setting, you probably don't, because you don't see yourself in that management sort of leadership role.
Yeah.
Even though you are a leader, you probably don't relate to it in that way. So,
yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the Association for Coaching then. So they've got two pathways. So how do they differentiate?
So I had a little look at the accreditation applicant guide, which, if anyone is thinking about personal accreditation, I would highly recommend downloading and having a read of. It's really useful in your application. So in that applicant guide, the Association for Coaching say that experience counted as executive coaching is where you've undertaken coaching in the context of the coachee's work. So it could be in the context of their role in an organisation, and that's an organisation of any size. Could be a role of self-employment. And it may include performance coaching, leadership coaching, career development, and business coaching. So you can include coachees at any level, so they don't have to be board members or have executive in their title. It's anything related to work, really. And it also can be self-commissioned or self-funded. It doesn't have to be coaching that's being provided by the employer. Okay. So that's executive coaching.
So that really is work-based coaching.
Yeah.
It's not executive. We're not coaching executives as such, are we?
No. And so some people might see executive coaching as purely focusing on executives in an organisation, but for the purpose of the label, if you like, of an executive coach with the association, they say it's any work-related coaching. And they go on to clarify that non-executive coaching is where it's being undertaken in any context outside of executive coaching. So personal coaching, relationship coaching, well-being, and that kind of thing.
So I think an awful lot of doctors would actually be engaged in executive coaching in that broader definition, and a lot of the time, because they're coaching people around what's going on for them at work.
Yeah. Now, I know you've done considerably more executive coaching than I have.
Done loads.
You've done loads, haven't you?
Yeah.
So whilst coaching individuals, it often takes into consideration their career, their work life, but that's not their main reason for coming to me. So I don't consider myself an executive coach, although I have done it. So I'm just wondering, with your vast experience of executive coaching, what topics come up for you when you're working with clients?
Leadership is something that comes up as dealing with people, even with lower level managers, that sort of leadership element, leading people, comes up or something. I would say a lot of the time people come with problems. So I might be given a brief to coach someone around developing them as a leader, but quite often they do come with problems. So my very first paid for coaching session was a guy at TNT, and he'd been to an assessment centre, and they said, yeah, you need to work on these 3 things. So that's what the coaching was going to be about. And in our first session, I said, okay, where are we going to start? And he said, I don't get on with my boss.
Oh.
So that was our very first encounter. And we did talk about other stuff, but that's quite often the way it works, that people will have something going on that they're not sure about and want to talk through. So an awful lot of the time I am allowing them to explore problems that they've got. But, just trying to think now what else that we talk about. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because I'm more of a transformational coach. I don't get too involved in skills-based coaching. And I think quite often you would have coaches that engaged in that way. So there may be communication stuff that someone is missing. They maybe ask, get some coaching on your communication. And maybe different skills. I'm trying to think of other skills that people use.
Well, I've been asked to do work in the workplace. I've been asked to coach around presentation skills.
Yeah, and I've certainly done
so
that.
Yeah, that's something skill based.
Emotional intelligence, something that people sometimes get asked to have some coaching on. But I think we discussed this when we did our leadership coaching podcast, that a lot of the time it's just people navigating their situation, and they have problems and they have friction with other people. And I would say that the vast majority of my coaching is about relationships with other people in the workplace and how they navigate them.
But your role is still to raise awareness in the coachee, isn't it? It's not about training. It's about raising awareness and drawing the answers out of them.
Because I'm not. But if you were a skills-based coach, you might well be telling people what they should be doing. But that's not me.
Yeah.
So very much sitting with them whilst they explore their situation and allowing them to take new perspectives, gain new insights.
And understand themselves better and those dynamics.
Yeah, and I do use tools. So I will use psychometrics, personality profiling to explore what's going on. I use biocharacter strengths as a strengths-based tool. I have my strengths cards that I use. So we are exploring values is something that I always explore with clients. So there are areas that I do go to that maybe they haven't even thought of going to, so that I will introduce those just as a way of helping them think about themselves in a broader sense and think about how they show up.
So it really is bringing that transformational coaching approach into the executive environment.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about when people have relationship issues, I think if they understand themselves better, then they can understand other people better and have better relationships. So
the big difference is often that three-way contracting.
Yes, and that's obviously something that you have to consider when you are engaged in, it could be four-way contracting. So you might be working for an associate coaching company that has a contract with the organization that then is asking you to coach an individual. So that your contract is really with the coaching company. They have a contract with the organization, and then you obviously have to somehow contract with the coachee. But quite often the three-way coaching that we talk about is normally with the line manager and the coachee and the coach. So you will quite often have a conversation, the three of you, to determine what the coaching is going to be about and what the parameters of the coaching are before the coaching starts. And then maybe a wrap-up session at the end to let them know, for the coachee to talk about what's happened and how they've benefited from the coaching.
And obviously the confidentiality part would come in there. Who knows what? Yeah.
And I think that's really tricky, because if you were working for a coaching company, they might want some feedback on what's happening because it's their client. You might have to fill out reports, and so then you have to be really careful about what is being said to the coaching company, and they might assure you that it's confidential, that your communication with them is confidential, so you can talk about the client, but you're never really going to know because they might have a relationship with the director at the company and go, oh, we've got problems with this guy, coaching's not going well, and then that's suddenly not confidential, is it? So being clear about what within the coaching is confidential.
Yeah.
And it may be that you have to contract around, if it's not going well, I will have to go back to coaching company. We never really want to have those conversations, but I think that contracting when you are working with an outside organisation is important. I mean, it's important always, but I think more important if you are working for an associate company. And then if you are working directly for an organisation, but they are paying you to coach someone, as say, doing that three-way contracting of understanding from the line manager's perspective what a good outcome for the coaching would be is useful.
So some additional elements to consider when you're working in that environment.
Yeah. And I don't think organisations are always very clear about their contracting and what they just, can you come in and coach this guy? And they don't really have a clue how to contract. So you might have to do some work to establish a good contract with the employer, with the organisation.
Yeah, you might have to take the lead on that one.
Yeah, because quite often it might come through, with bigger organisations, it might come through HR or learning and development teams. It might come who you think would be hot on contracting, but they're not always. Or it might just come from a director who's had some coaching and knows it's been a benefit to them. So they want some people to have some coaching, but they don't understand contracting either.
Yeah, and they'll make some assumptions.
Yeah.
Like they might assume they will be told things, or they might assume they won't be told things, and you don't know until that's contracted for.
Yeah.
Okay, so some things to consider there. So just in terms of the accreditation process that I mentioned, the Association for Coaching consider applications against their core competencies, and there are 9 core competencies, if that makes sense. And then there are 3 more for executive applications. So in both pathways, the initial 9 are covered. And then you've got 3 more that they gauge your application by.
Okay.
And they relate to, the 3 areas are working within an organisational context. So that's including awareness of the client's role, stakeholders and organisational structure. Understanding leadership issues, including exploring leadership behaviours with the client, and working in partnership with the organisation. So that's where they're being able to manage 3-way contracting or 4-way contracting comes in, adding value to the organisation and the client. So those 3 competencies have to be evidenced in your application. And whilst there isn't any additional work required for an executive application, just something to be aware of for anyone who is considering it is that a minimum of 75% of logged coaching hours must involve coaching in that executive space in the organisational setting.
Yeah, but their parameters are really broad. So it's just workplace coaching. But then I'm not sure you could meet the competencies if you were just doing work-based coaching, not focusing on stakeholders, organisational structure, leadership.
Yeah.
And I don't think everyone's going to be doing that.
If you were just focusing on career coaching, I don't think you'd hit those. No. And if you were just focusing on the self-employed, I don't think you'd hit those.
And if you were just focusing on people lower down or just helping people navigate the workplace, again, those things might not be discussed.
Yeah. What I would say, though, is you could become accredited as a coach rather than executive coach, but still use executive coach in your title because there's no sort of regulation around that.
Yeah, just reading that, I think, I am an executive coach. I do all of those things.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and obviously working within an organisational context, that's going to come up. And the more senior you get, I guess, the more you have to think about the organisational context. But that stakeholder management is definitely something that comes up within my coaching. So not only managing the team, but managing upwards and managing sideways, and knowing that the impact of your department on other departments, what that's going to do. So, and people get in the way of you doing your thing, and being able to manage those different stakeholders is really important. And there may be organizational structure that is going on. There's a system at play, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So useful to be able to talk about that with people. And I've done a lot of work on leadership. I understand leadership theories and can talk about those. So if someone suddenly started saying, "Oh, well, I've been accused of having a charismatic leadership style," I would know what that meant.
Yeah.
And whereas if you hadn't got a background in leadership, you probably would struggle a little bit to understand the context.
But some of our doctors particularly have been on leadership training courses and sort of bringing that together with the transformational coaching diploma. There's absolutely no reason why they couldn't. And we have had some of our doctors who've gone through that and applied at executive level, which is great.
But I suppose there's no need to apply for an executive coaching accreditation. If you're working as a doctor and coaching other people within a health setting, you could just be a coach.
Yeah.
You don't have to go for that executive coach label.
Absolutely. Yes.
But as we've said, our doctors coaching within the NHS would be able to count those hours.
They would.
They just might not be able to evidence some of those requirements.
Yeah. But just to pick up on that, any internal coaching is countable in logged hours. So long as there is a formal coaching arrangement. So if someone is a line manager, they've got a team and they have a coaching approach, or they use coaching tools, skills at appraisal, that wouldn't be counted.
No.
As always, you have to have that contracted for coaching session for it to be counted in your coaching log. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah. And I think people do try and sneak some in, don't they?
Yes.
Oh, I had this coaching session. I had this coaching conversation. Yeah, but did you tell them it was a coaching session?
Yes.
Or were you just using some coaching questions?
Which is a great tool to be able to have in your toolbox, but it's not coaching that can be logged as part of your experience, I suppose.
Okay. So for any of our doctors who are thinking they want, and they will, well, most of them I think will be thinking that they're going to use their coaching in the workplace. But if they're thinking about coaching within organisations like the NHS or working as a career coach, they could actually use an executive coaching badge label within their marketing.
Yeah.
It's part of what they offer.
Absolutely.
I don't know many of our doctors that use that executive coaching label. Some do.
Some do.
Yeah.
And as I say, some have gone through that process and applied for accreditation as an executive coach.
I think if you were engaged in career coaching, you'd probably call yourself a career coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, one thing I would say is you get bigger checks if you're an executive coach.
Well, there's a good reason for using it.
And do you know, when I first started coaching, I kind of looked at how much coaches got paid, and the only real guidance I had was a life coaching directory. Most of the people on there were doing life coaching and charging 50 quid an hour or something. Well, it's a long time ago, but that seemed to be and I thought, I can't make a living doing that. That's not enough. So actually just found a way to find a way into executive coaching to get bigger checks. Yeah. The company checks are bigger. The organisational checks are bigger.
Yes, that is something to consider.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I should relish spending NHS money, but there is more of it about than if you're asking an individual to pay for their own coaching.
Yeah.
So in summary, executive coaching is an option for our doctors. The transformational coaching diploma that they've gone through will qualify as sufficient training for them to be an executive coach. What they will need to have done for their accreditation is to evidence working within that space. So spend their hours in that organisational setting, and they have some competencies that they would have to meet. They would have to evidence as well.
Yes.
but it may be useful to think about executive coaching as a route to market yourself as a coach and to gain paid coaching employment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
good summary.
And we have a good number of our coaches that have been paid by organisations to coach people. So it's definitely working in that sense.
Yeah. Excellent.
Good. Thank you, Helen. Enjoyed that.
Thank you very much.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time on the podcast, this is exciting. We're going to share with our listeners an episode that you recorded a little while back for someone else's podcast.
Someone else?
Yes. We're going to be sharing we're going to be sharing your episode with Rachel Morris from You Are Not a Frog. And that's
a while ago now.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, but we had a good conversation.
Yeah, and it was all about being listened to.
Yeah, I did. Do you know what I remember? I remember about that podcast was talking about Rachel's bike.
Okay.
we did, yeah. It's an interesting conversation, but yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll be sharing that.
Image of Rachel being stood having a conversation with her son with the bike. Now, people will be intrigued now, won't they? They'll want to know what that was all about.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, for now, do share the podcast and give us a 5-star review if you've enjoyed listening to us. And we'll be back soon. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.